Morning, how you doing? It is Tuesday the 7th of April. This video today is about Zoom. All I've heard in the last 2 weeks is Zoom this, Zoom that. I've seen things on BBC website, I've seen things on Flipboard, I've seen things on Twitter, people talking about Zoom video conferencing for the first time in what seems like a decade. Zoom has been around forever. It is one of those OG internet applications from a decade ago. It's done very, very well out of video conferencing with their software and their apps, and very corporation minded. They haven't really innovated though in a very long time, and whenever you are a web company that all of a sudden has the lens of attention put onto you, that's when things start falling apart for you. Obviously because of coronavirus, COVID-19, everybody or a lot of people who were working in startup land or IT land couldn't go into the office anymore, so they're working remotely. And so the biggest one out there, the biggest video conferencing app that most big corporations tend to lean towards is Zoom. Now, don't get me wrong, legacy is important. If you've been around a long time, video apps that have been around a long time look like they're trusted. You know, it's the reason why McDonald's has billions and billions served on their post, because people know it, it's familiar, it's been around for a while, they trust it because it has been around for a while. That doesn't necessarily mean that company is innovating, and you only have to look at something in the food industry like Popeyes with its chicken sandwich, which blew up and went viral, and then all the other companies tried to make a better chicken sandwich. In similar ways to that, Zoom has always going to have a problem that whenever you have attention put onto you, that's always a bad thing on the internet. I've wrote a big long blog post out for this video, but the bottom line is for me is that I don't tend to use video applications that are popular. Now, I can understand that some people are tied into it, their company uses it, the dial-in phone number is very important, especially if you want to do like retro phone calls from the 70s or 80s. People tend to do video chat these days rather than using a phone number to call in. But I understand that feature. You might want that feature. You also might like the recording feature, all of that stuff. But in recent days, there's things popping up about recordings being made public, and the search engines for finding Zoom rooms. There's a new definition called Zoom bombing, where people just join these rooms and cause some kind of disruption. And that's the internet that we live in now. It's not just because of the Internet of Things. Wherever you find a attention economy, you'll find also a disruption economy, because people just don't like too much popularity. The internet doesn't like celebrities, never has, never will. It will always go to the short fast impact as much as possible. And unfortunately, because Zoom is in the headlights of that right now, is in the target of that right now, I expect like issues to keep happening with Zoom. Admittedly, they did fix their problem they had with their installer recently, because a security researcher says it looked very kind of malware like. There's all kinds of news going around that your video things get streamed through China and yada yada yada. To be honest, when things like this happen, chances are it's going to take a complete rewrite of Zoom, and that probably is going to be a good thing, because there'll be more innovation, there'll be more researchers submitting stuff, and probably we'll end up with a better product at the end of it. But that probably won't be for another 6 months from now. Admittedly, they did rapidly get that fix out for the installer, but I think that was just like a poorly put together installer. A big corporation that's been around for a long time, this is kind of what happens. They stagnate and they just plod along until obviously something like isolation puts a lens on them, because more people are using the software, and so the investors are like, shit, we need to like control this narrative and make it good for Zoom. So personally, I use as many different video chat apps as possible. I tend to cycle them around. I tend to use video chat apps that are end-to-end encryption. I tend not to share the public URLs or capture the whole screen so that people can see the URL or the service I'm using. I try and wrap the embeds inside of something like OBS. You know, you can have it like as a layer, capture part of the screen and put it behind a theme, for instance, and change that up every other week, change it to another different service. Some particular favorites of mine are Whereby and Jitsi, but there's things like Wire. There's lots of end-to-end encrypted things out there, which, you know, if you're doing important video chats, maybe with a company, you might want that extra level of security on your video chat. So I've wrote out a massive big post about this, but my personal opinion is, you know, if you have to use Zoom, use it on a dedicated machine or use it in a virtual machine. Spin up a virtual machine and install Zoom inside of that. And if you want a little bit more security, run it on a like segmented network, or maybe run it on a separate network with some kind of 4G or 5G failover, just in case you get connectivity issues. But on the whole, I wouldn't recommend using Zoom personally. If you can get people to use something else, there's a lot of easier things on the market. You don't actually have to install software these days to use a video chat. And yes, okay, there is issues with WebRTC, which is using web video in a browser. But I find for people who are not used to video conferencing, especially these people in isolation who want to get into these video chats, using something like Webby or even the new Skype Meet or Skype Now, whatever it's called, you don't actually need to install any software. So the access to it is incredibly easy because there's no programs that you need to install, which is another attack vector if you're having to install some software, which lots of security researchers and hackers are looking at breaking because they want to break up your attention party on looking at Zoom right now. So that's it really. Give it a read. I've done a pretty long post this morning because it mainly went from ranting into some thoughts about all kinds of software really. This isn't just tied to Zoom. This is any popular web application that you start using on the web. You can expect these things to kind of happen because that's just the temperature of the web. That's how the internet works. It loves getting behind the underdog, and if the underdog is breaking the attention economy of a popular application, then they'll do it. All right, I will catch up with you soon. You have a great day wherever you are on planet Earth, and don't forget to wash your hands. I'll see you soon. Bye.